Hey Ron.
Pretty big movie came out. You want to
Yeah,
talk about it?
I guess we have to. Sure.
Right. Well, I think we've all been waiting for it, even those of us who weren't particularly fond of the first Dune. But
Yeah,
there was something about the marketing for this one that really promised kind of an old school epic, but done in the most kind of cutting edge way.
yeah, I wasn't taken in by doing part one, and it was sort of also so far away that I didn't remember so much of it to feel like, is it going to be a continuation of the first movie? Should I rewatch the first film to make sense of the second film? I didn't know where I stood. It wasn't something I was waiting for, that a lot of people have been mentioning that they were waiting for this film for a long time, and it was sort of a big spectacle event for them. I was doing it because I thought it's a tentpole film for the year that I should be seeing so that I'm part of the conversation. And mostly I didn't want spoiler to ruin it because everything gets ruined within 24 hours of a film coming out. And frankly, I was quite astounded. I was not expecting this film to be this good. I am genuinely amazed. I think this film really caught me off guard.
Yeah, I think we're both going to be pretty basic hoes here. Dune Part Two is exceptional. I don't have any contrarian opinion to offer. This is a pretty great movie. It's better than I could have ever wanted it to be. I think it's way better than it has any right to be. It is a pretty corny story at its heart, and all of the tropes that would annoy me in something similar are present, but something about the urgency of the story, the stakes feel very real, the peril as well. It was scary, it was immersive, it gave me this massive world to kind of inhabit and within which I could feel like a child again. I don't think a movie of this scale has really worked for me like this. And probably, yeah, when I was like 8, 9 years old and the Lord of the Rings films were coming out.
For myself, I would give the example of maybe the early Indiana Jones films. It has that sense of real adventure that you go into a movie and it makes you feel like something unexpected is about to happen. And I think that's the one thing that I took away. Even though the overall plotline is quite predictable, the actual set pieces and how they're set up make you feel like you want to anticipate what's going to happen next. And there is a sense of real urgency and the sense of real excitement that makes you feel like even though you may know where the story is going overall, in that moment you feel that there's you don't know what's going to happen next. There is an unpredictability in the very moment of those scenes. You're like, oh, look at that, are they going to survive? The very first big set piece where Paul and Jessica have to survive. They go down this great dune and try to hide themselves, and they have to save themselves. There's real fear for their life. There is real danger there,
Yeah.
which
Even though, of
even
course,
though
they can't possibly perish this early in the film, there's
exactly,
still
they're not going to
like a
die in the
very,
very first scene. You
but
know they're
there's
not going to.
just a very real sense of danger, like you said. And that, I don't know how you pull that off, but Denis Villeneuve's done it.
And like we've already admitted, we weren't fans of part one, so we're not like Dune heads. Is that a thing? Dune heads? Can we? Is that a term we can use? We're not like Dune fans, so we were basically converted by the end of this film, and now we're
I
practically
think
joining the cult.
Wormheads is probably like the better name or yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
I guess we've joined the Lisan Al Gaib
Dune
cult.
Dwellers or something.
Well, we've joined the cult. We've joined the Lisan Al Gaib Messianic cult by the end of this film. We are firm believers in the prophecy.
I'm definitely a firm believer in Villeneuve, especially after this movie. Not that I needed much more evidence. I think he's always been a very strong visualist. This week, I've seen some people attacking him for saying he hates dialogue, and I don't think that's quite what he meant. But, still, some people have brought up funny points like Arrival being a movie about language. It's hard not to kind of chuckle and tip your hat to that. Even if, of course, ultimately we understand that when a director says images are his most powerful tools, he's not dismissing the importance of dialogue. He is just reaffirming that film is a visual medium. And
Exactly. I completely agree with
that
you.
being said, I don't think it's fair to say that people don't remember movies for a good line. I think like comedies in particular kind of ride or die on their ability to deliver memorable zingers.
And also, I mean, comparatively, this is what a lot of people have said who've basically read the books and been following that. So much of this source material, the book, is internal monologue. To turn that into something which is visually appealing, Dune Part 2 doesn't rely on internal monologue that much. It does rely a lot on basic external storytelling.
I applaud the movie for slowing down and giving us intimate dialogue driven moments. I was always able to, even when I was lost in like the otherworldly sort of intergalactic stakes of it all, I was always able to lock myself into the personal journeys, even the love story. I mean, I'm sitting there next to like, teenage girl and I'm gasping just as loudly as they are when Timothy Chalamet betrays Zendaya. I was almost happy to look past some of these tropes and cliches because it just without them, I don't think the story has that same kind of earnest appeal. Even it's doing something so redolent of like our favorite childhood epics, but still in such a dark, truly, I mean, there are moments that really frightened me, and I think that's a big part of the reason it works. That the peril, the the danger. I mean, some of these characters, their utter ruthlessness, it all creates this very sort of overwhelming, enormous sense, and maybe that is also why I keep talking about being in this sort of childlike state where everything is dangerous and large, but also full of wonder and mystery. And that's just like what the movie did. And that's a wonderful thing. I'm so beyond ecstatic that like this movie is. I just really never thought I could love it this much. I think it's wonderful.
I can sense that sort of palpable childlike wonder that you're talking about. It's radiating off the screen practically, and that's why I compared it to the Indiana Jones films because those films for me were formative, and now I can look back and there are so many flaws and they're kind of films which you feel like they were off a certain time, and some of those tropes will never work today because they feel so dated, and yet that sense of adventure, excitement is something that's so formative for me as a child. Like those are imprinted in my brain. And I feel like some images from these films, at least definitely Dune Part 2, and it convinced me to revisit Dune Part 1, by the way, and try to see them as a cohesive one film. You don't have to, but I just felt it was nice of me to revisit Part 1, a film that I didn't like as much. And it improved Part 1 for me because of what Part 2 is. But even then,
That was always, I think, a lot of people who criticized part one always sort of included that caveat that they may reassess the film after part two. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, and you talk about some of the images getting etched into your
yeah,
mind. And I would
I
say
want to,
they're
I want to go
all
back.
the obvious images. They're not all the ones with the big. I mean, yes, some of those are gorgeous. You know, the sandworms coming out of the dust and like crashing onto the army. That's all amazing. But some of the most memorable images in the film are also the simplest. That shot from behind Paul and Chani while they're overlooking the desert. The craft there is just so pure and old fashioned, and also I want to throw in, we're talking about Lord of the Rings, you're talking about Indiana Jones. I think a key element to these big movies that really stay with us is being shot on location. You know, it's definitely it it makes it easier for us to invest in the world and for it to register as authentic. The texture, the colors,
It
it's
feels
all
real. It
so
feels like this is a
so
part of some
warm. It's
real
so
world,
inviting. Yeah.
part of a real world. It doesn't feel like it's all filmed in front of a green screen, right? But I want to go back to something you mentioned, which is the love story angle, and the reason why the love story has that kind of impact that you were talking about when the betrayal happens is that the way it's actually established is so beautiful. There's the shot that you're talking about them sitting and it's filmed from the back. One of my favorite sequences is when Johnny's teaching Paul about how to kind of do this La La Land style dance on the sand, and that's kind of beautiful. And you see how they were so protective of each other and they really care about each other. And it's established through these very real themes which show their emotion towards each other. And when Paul says, I don't think I'll ever leave you and I love you so much, it feels earnest. It feels like these are the sort of things you would say when you fall in love for the first time. It doesn't feel like a line. It doesn't feel like it doesn't
No, I
feel.
mean, I don't know. I think it feels like a line, but
I know, but like
the
it's
part
not
of
a.
the movie's magical illusion is that you just kind of don't care. Like you buy into some of the artifice because the world itself feels so real.
What I meant about like it doesn't feel like a line is specifically, when you're like a teenager and you fall in love for the first time and you think like this is the one person I'm going to spend the rest of my
Yeah,
life
and what
with.
do? You use
Yeah,
lines. You use
no,
movie
no,
lines.
but when you, yeah, exactly. When you say these things, you feel like I'm saying it to this one person for the first time, and this is going to be it. Of course, that's not going to be it, and in the movie, that's not it either.
The mythology of this world worked so particularly well for me. And I was like following every beat of it, even though when you look at it from afar, you realize that it's just like the same note over and over again. It's like, you must do this thing, and you will either die or emerge as the next Messiah and be the chosen one. And it's
Yeah,
like,
basically,
he does the thing,
the choice is
he
not the choice.
survives the test,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then there's still another test, and it's like the same thing. It's like, okay, no man has ever like taken this poison. If he survives, he is the Quizak Haderach Kit Kat Horowitz. He's the holy chosen one.
cataract.
And it's like it is a little repetitive, but again, that's where part of the magic lies. I just didn't care. I just so fully bought into this world, and I was with, and I'm hearing like the Reverend Mother drinks this Gatorade looking potion, and then she absorbs all
I'm
of the
sorry.
memories of and
Warm
then she's
piss.
gonna turn
Warm
them.
piss.
It looked, I mean, they should have made it like a different.
Blue
It should have
Gatorade.
been
Yeah,
like,
it felt like
yeah,
blue
it's like
Gatorade.
it just looks too refreshing to be called worm piss. For it to be worm piss, it should have looked sandy, or it should have looked like chicken
Yeah,
broth or something. I don't
yeah.
know. I was so fully invested in this world that I didn't care that some of it was just, it didn't matter whether it made sense or not. It
You
was
know, you
just so
know.
transportive, and it was so, everything was treated so gravely, and the characters took it so seriously, and because of the steeliness of the filmmaking, it was just easy for me to go with it. This isn't a movie so much about the myths themselves, it is about I think it makes it a completely different and more stimulating story when you politically contextualize myth, when you're not just examining the myth itself, but the role it plays in a political world, in a society. And the parallels are pretty clear. And nevertheless, it's kind of exciting to see pieces of our geopolitical history kind of projected onto this epic canvas of sci-fi fantasy.
I want to go back
I've
to something
heard,
you
yeah,
mentioned here, which is about why the mythology really works. And for me, one of the reasons I was thinking about it, and it is that everyone around it, in terms of the supporting cast, you look at the Reverend Mother, Jessica, which is Rebecca Ferguson, you look at Stilgar, Javier Bardem, uh, all of these people are so sure, and their commitment to the prophecy and to the mythology actually solidifies this feeling that it's a sense of inevitability, that it's going to happen because everyone else has already bought into it. So even when Paul is iffing and umming and ahhing and sort of not sure about it, I actually felt his arc was the weakest, and I felt like that is something I had an issue with, but it didn't have a problem with it as much because everyone else was so committed around him. It was so obvious. There's this hilarious sequence when Javier Bardem is trying to convince the rest of his followers about the greatness of Lisan Al Gaib. So when Paul comes around and tries to convince everybody, look, I don't think I'm the Messiah, guys. I want to be very clear about it. Do not make me the Messiah. He's like, I'm being categorical. Do not make me into this thing. And then Javier Bardem said the funniest thing. It's so well delivered. I had a laugh out loud because everyone was laughing. It's not just me.
of course, the Lisan Al Gaib is too humble to admit that he's the Lisan Al Gaib. Yeah, no, I
Exactly.
mean, it's I've
But
heard,
that's also how like mythology works. That's also how people buy into it. You can't rationalize with these people because everything that you come up with, every reason that you come up with, can always be twisted and warped into
it
confirming
just
their belief. It was so well done in this movie that everything else felt inevitable. That you knew this was going to happen, no matter how much someone resisted. So like that whole arc was so well thought out. Like really,
I
props
mean,
to.
I don't think the movie is suggesting that because everyone believed the prophecy that the prophecy itself became stronger. I think the story actually takes a more of like an empirical view almost, in that it's suggesting not that the prophecy grows stronger because of its believers, but rather that the prophecy becomes self-fulfilling,
Yeah.
precisely because of that instinct that you just described in Stilgar to reduce everything to further confirmation of his priors. I've heard some people online kind of carp about the movie losing some of its focus and thematic richness toward the end. And I'll even grant them that. Like, yeah, I do think the setup is stronger than the payoff. Even though, again, by the payoff, I was just so emotionally invested, and like I hung on like every facial
Yeah, you
expression.
the movie's got you by that point. The movie really has you
Yeah,
by the throat. Like
that
you don't.
like the logic of the story of all of it, it just kind of it didn't matter as much, right? Because
Yeah.
I was riding the worm. I was totally into it. And um so I will grant that the movie does kind of step away from more deeply exploring some of its ideas. But at the same time, it's kind of remarkable that a big studio movie like this even is delving into those questions.
Yeah.
And some of the arguments were really interesting in the beginning, just like the way it illustrates this schism. We're actually getting almost like psychological profiles on them because the movie is examining the nature of belief. And I just think
Precisely.
it's a daring place for a movie like this to go. Is it the deepest exploration of these ideas? No, but we're never judging. I'm not comparing this movie to like About Dry Grasses, right? I'm not like rating
Yeah.
its sort of philosophical quality compared to that. I'm comparing this movie to other big
Yeah.
sci-fi fantasy epics. And as far as that genre goes, yeah, I think this is a particularly contemplative example.
I completely agree. I love that you brought that point because one of my favorite things in the beginning section of the film was about this distrust of foreigners and how that is playing out within the Fremen society. It was quite particular, and I really respected the diversity of opinions of whenever you get
Yeah.
to interact with an outside, the
I just want
unknown,
to throw
basically.
in I just want to throw in there real quick that diversity of belief among the tribes and characters that does more world building than the all the technology. Getting to understand the political fabric of this world did more to immerse me in all of this than even those really cool like sonic things that they stick in the sand to call a worm.
It's a beautiful, beautiful illustration of how well the movie works on several fronts. To call it just a technological spectacle is unfair. The movie is working and it's got particular detailing in so many respects that this is why it works. It all works the cohesive unit. It's not just a technological marvel. It's not just a deep exploration of psychology or the cult of religion
There's
or
almost
mythology. It's
This is what I
everything.
think. I've heard people say this about the book, that sometimes it departs from its narrative to almost become like an encyclopedic text, just
Mhm.
like a kind of cold diagram of this world. And occasionally that came through, this sort of sociological quality, almost like I was beholding a document of another civilization. But at the same time, it is also very intimately involving you with these characters and their relationships. And I mean, yeah, Paul did Chani dirty and my heart broke. If this movie can have that effect on an adult who is not the target audience for this stuff,
But it is,
it's
it is.
remarkable.
No, no, I will
And I
disagree
think,
with
and
you
you know what
there.
we haven't talked about at all?
Yeah.
Like we have talked about the quality of the storytelling and the direction. I mean, the performances are fantastic. And even in a movie of strong ensemble work, I was totally blown away by Zendaya. I thought she gave the best performance in the movie. So instinctive and just impulsive at times. In the trailer, when we see her shout to a crowd, "This prophecy is how they enslave us." In the trailer, I'm just like, okay, she's just up on her soapbox. Like the whole scene is probably going to be her yelling. In the movie, that hit
No.
so hard because
Yeah.
she's actually, she looks around and she's supposed to be quiet. It's like a holy space. And she's actually doing something dangerous and she just can't help herself and she explodes. And it's almost like she's so frustrated with her people and she's trying to save them from their own worst instincts. And it's I just thought that performance was incredible. Wouldn't actually be surprised if a year from now I'm like either celebrating Zendaya's Oscar nomination or calling the Academy a bunch of cowards for not, going ahead and recognizing her work here. I did not think I would be the guy saying that Dune deserves acting nominations, but and I and
No, it does. It does. I think everyone's been talking about Austin Butler, and that's
because it's
fine.
the
But
creepy transformative role. Like, I
I
mean,
know.
he is
But
he is quite good, but
that's also
Zendaya
very.
just there's a
I,
reason the movie ends on her face. Like that's all you need. It's just that shot of her looking, betrayed. just in a movie of these grand visuals, it's like, nope, you just end on the power of the human face.
Zendaya is the heart of the film. I mean, her defiance in this movie in terms of how she is so morally courageous and yet not doesn't feel like she's, getting up on a soapbox, like you said. It doesn't feel like she's doing a bit. It feels like it's coming from deep within her. You believe in the character, and it's what Chani would
Like
do.
she's just exploding with this. Yeah, like
Yeah,
she's walking out of this temple or this chamber and she just stops and looks around and she just can't help it and she shouts that line. And I'm like, one of the corniest moments in the trailer
I
is
know.
actually one of the most hard-hitting, badass moments in the film itself.
She's capable of so much softness as well. Like you can see her kind of initial scenes with Paul, and they're so full of warmth and affection. And then she also has this fire and then fierceness, and it's such a beautifully complex performance.
I think Villeneuve wisely uses his discretion to reserve any sight of Fade Routha until well into the movie. And it really was his decision because the character is actually featured within the first 50 pages of the book. So Villeneuve would have even been justified introducing this character in the first installment, and at the very least, much earlier in Dune Part 2. But keeping him reserved until later in the film really build this sense of dread and menace that, I mean, pays off. Fade Ralph is pretty terrifying.
But my favorite performance is Rebecca Ferguson, man. Oh my God, she is so good.
Also, a delicate balance. Someone who was among our heroes becoming an antagonist, there's something so unsettling in those early moments where she says, to the child she's carrying, "Oh, we have to go convert the weak ones first."
Yeah, oh yeah,
It's
the way she does
fascinating.
that. Oh my God! But it's even more than the scheming woman that she becomes. It's this beautiful
Period.
transformation. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we talk about the transformation, and we'll get to Paul's transformation and why it doesn't quite land for me. But
Even though we've talked about this, and I did argue, uh, even though it's rushed, it does follow the story's internal logic. It
I
is
I
consistent, which is why I give it that pass.
I do agree with that. But at the same time,
Even
in
if it's
terms of
not
a
narratively or dramatically
Yeah,
satisfying.
yeah. But from a purely performance point of view, Rebecca Ferguson's transformation was drastic. Like she is so reticent. She's so unsure of what she needs to do. And then she drinks the blue Gatorade and she becomes a different person. And you really see the
Hey,
difference.
doesn't blue Gatorade do that to you when you drink it?
I wish, man. I wish I could become a confident person. This is what I was thinking when I was watching the movie. I'm such a self-doubted sort of person who's like a squeaky desert mouse. I want the blue Gatorade to become like, I want to convert the weak ones. Worship me, bitch. I want to be that person too. So yeah.
So there, you just hit on it. Like she drinks the potion and the transformation is almost instant. That's why I had no problem buying the similar
Yeah,
speed of Paul's
I
transformation.
agree, but Timothy Chalamet is not as accomplished an actor to sell that. The way he was trying to
Glad
do
you
that,
admit that. Everyone is always trying to tell me that Timmy is just like the greatest actor of his generation. And I'm like,
fuck no.
I don't agree. I
No,
don't
but
agree.
but in this film, it was also
I don't think
so.
he's bad in this, by the
No,
way.
no, no,
I
no,
think
no,
he's
no.
fine.
But it's so immediately apparent because we have two different actors going through a similar transformative journey after drinking the blue Gatorade. It's basically like they both have to go through that transformation. And Rebecca Ferguson selling that, and Timothy Chalamet trying to sell that. I say trying in a very operative word. He tries very hard, but his version of being
That's
authoritative,
Timothy Chalamet, man. It just,
yeah. But
tensing all the muscles in his face and shouting. That is his
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
He does
But
it in every movie.
Timothy Chalamet's version of being authoritative is him using his Jupiter ascending voice, like that Eddie Redmayne scream. I don't know. Like I'm just like, oh wait, hang on, Jimmy, that's fine. I get it. You're trying to be authoritative. That's cute. Now go back to being cute again. It's just like, it doesn't quite work. It's not as effective. It just feels, oh, you tried. It just what my feeling.
I've been seeing a lot of takes on Twitter say that he gives the performance of the movie, and
No way.
I don't
God
know. I
no.
mean, I can at least understand where they're coming from because that third act does require a certain kind of
Even Javier Bardem is better. And he does sell that role really well. I mean, he has some funny zingers, and his
and he's
complete
very emotionally like effective when he says
yes.
to him, "I don't care what you believe. I believe." It hits. I mean, even though those moments were in the trailer set to a kind of enormous, overwhelming score, still in the movie, all of these lines just resonated a lot more. And I was totally in this film's grip from beginning to end. I really loved it. I mean, I actually came out of the theater and did something I haven't done in years. Like I decided I want to just throw myself into this world and like read the book and become a total nerd. And you just like a lot of different franchises have come and gone, and I just haven't felt the need to, like when I was a child, like really get into the actual source material. But this was so exhilarating and again just so transportive that I was like, yeah, I want to stay in this. I want to feel like a kid for a little longer, and I want to like get the book and just become like a geek for, a few days.
I mean, it's the
It's a
old school.
nice, warm feeling.
People keep talking about how critics are just cold, heartless people who don't really love anything, and yet you see something like this, and it sort of makes you believe in the magic of the movies, and yeah, and that's why this feeling is so precious because it doesn't happen that often. It
It
only
makes you
happens so
not just, I
rarely.
mean, I'm frequently reminded of the magic of the movies. I don't need a big spectacle to remind me of the
No, no,
magic
but
of the
like
movies.
you come
But
out of the
this
theater,
reminded
yeah,
me of the magic of this kind of movie because for the longest time, our big budget epics just have not delivered this kind of experience. And I mean, I detest Avatar. I like I don't I'm not even going to get into Marvel, okay? Like enough words have been said about like the crappiness of Marvel, no argument there. But like even Avatar, which is supposed to be the quality alternative, I hate those movies. I think they're visually so boring, and the I don't think they're narratively daring at all. And they definitely don't convey the sense of peril that this movie did. Just in that moment of Dave Bautista, like slamming his advisor's head into the control panel and screaming, "Kill all the rats!" Like I felt chilled.
I want to go back to because like there's so many set pieces in this film which are just majestic, and I feel like I want to mention some more of them because those are the images that are like haunting me. They're not leaving my brain, and that doesn't happen. Like one
And
of
they're not
those,
even the images that showcase like the cool eye-catching technology. It's Villeneuve's ability to take the most kind of attention grabbing element and minimize it in the frame.
yeah.
Right? He's often been called like a sort of minimalist blockbuster filmmaker. And I just love those images where like the giant thing that's supposed to inspire awe is actually like very minute in the corner of the frame. He does that in Blade Runner 2049 as well. And I love that.
One of the most beautiful things there is, when talking about set pieces and we're talking about Austin Butler. there is this gladiator-like scene.
Yeah.
That whole sequence is truly majestic. You see that
Yeah.
people chanting in the background and the build up to that. Oh my
And
God, that's
also, I mean, the color grade, the like monochromatic.
everything to that. The whole
You know
entry
what I
sequence.
really love?
Yeah.
Sorry, I think you were possibly about to hit on what I wanted to say.
No, no,
The
you can. I'm gonna steal your thunder, but I think we're both thinking the same thing. But you go for it.
I love when characters were sort of exiting an interior and walking into what they called, I
The
believe, the
arena.
Black
Yeah.
Sun, as the monochrome kind of like overtakes them as they become sort of bathed in that light. It was I was just watching that whole scene starry-eyed. It was, yeah, it was huge and terrifying and so novel looking. I mean,
But also like the kind of rousing feeling of the atmosphere, the chanting, the music, everything makes it feel epic. Everything makes it feel sort of that everything is turned up to 11 in the best possible way. This is exhilarating. It kind of makes your adrenaline go high. It's yeah, it's no other way to describe it. You feel like you're part of the action. It's so many set pieces like that. All I can think of is I want to go back and watch this again and again and again.
I didn't think I would be on this train, but fuck yeah, give this movie a Best Picture nomination. Give
Oh
me
yeah.
Best Director, not, however, at the expense of Steve McQueen's win for Blitz. I'm sorry.
Not even
Like
come out yet though. Come on.
the
Let's wait for it to
2024
come out.
2025 Best Director Oscar just has to go to Steve McQueen.
Yeah, I mean,
And you know what? This is even the kind of thing, it makes me excited to see everything else. It it's like it's just this wonderful thing. Like you see something, not that you don't just see a great movie, but you see a movie that makes great use of the medium, and it just increases the quality of everything else. It's like you just want to like just you just want to get your hands dirty with some film. Yes, we love film. We wake up every day thinking about like how much we love film. But not every movie you see fuels that passion, right? Sometimes
yeah.
that passion prevails and has to overcome a subpar movie going experience. And then sometimes you see a movie and you're just lifted to like these wonderful highs. And I
Yeah,
think this
here
movie is a
definitely
wonderful, wonderful, massive achievement.
all things said and done, there are certain times when you see something that make you feel more alive. And this is one of those films that make you feel glad that you're part of this world, which has discovered the craft of movie making and that can sort of share that magic with other
It
people.
sounds
And
hokey, but that's it. Yeah, I'm just happy to like be alive in a world where film is a thing. Like I know that's corny as shit, but
no, it's not. It's
when a
quite
movie can
simple.
make you when a movie can make you earnestly like spew these cliches, yeah, man, it's a great thing.
All right. This is Lisan Al Gaib and Muad'Dib signing off
You just had to do
from
that.
Arrakis. Until next. See ya, guys.